All right, so in this video, what we're going to do is make a blob and then animate it. And blobs, you may have seen them before. You may have spilt something on the floor and it looked like a blob, right? What we're going to do is some CSS. You already see that. I have my screen here. I kind of have this code examples directory. Really ignore the Python and this JS file. We're not going to be using it. We're just going to need this index.html file because we need this div right here. And then our styles.css, if you want to name it. blob.css, I don't care. As long as the name of this file and then this matchup, we're all good. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and close that up there. And blobs are really a practice in border radius. And there's a lot of ways that we could use and call out a border radius. And I'm going to do, I don't think it's going to be the complex version of it, but there are definitely more straightforward ways of discussing different points of the radius on a border. So let's first go ahead and come in and just kind of easily and simply design out our square, which we will then turn into a blob. So off screen, I have some other code. And like my rule of thumb, I always, if there's a hex, I just come in and just do that. So nothing's going to be appearing on our screen. So we need a width and a height. Cool. So we have this right here. So we're going to save this and we are pretty close. We're a lot closer than you think. So we have this, right? And what is kind of cool is that when we go ahead and do this blob, we have to think about it in kind of interesting kind of terms, right? And so when we think about how do we make this blobby, we have to kind of start knocking in the sides in some of these areas, right? And so that means we have to smush in maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. And so what I'm going to show you is this. And I'm going to copy and paste this in because it's a lot of percentages. And symbolically, it looks a little weird, right? So we have this. Now we kind of have a blob. And you're like, well, you just copied and pasted that in. What's that teaching me? What's that telling me? Well, I'm going to now comment in my code. And I'm going to roll this on over here. I'm going to move this on back because we don't need as much of that space. And so if we were to come in now and just comment this out and save it, we could see that this is very, very, very terse shorthand for a CSS border radius. And so this dividing right here is just a way to, I guess, chop up logically what you're working with and what sides you're working on. And maybe it could have been more straightforward. I have no clue, but this is just the way things are. And if you don't like it like this, there's more explicit ways of doing it. But we have top left, which is the first number right here. So top and then to the left. And the next one we have top right, which is right here. And then we do have the bottom right and then the bottom left. And that's this entire side, you know, I guess you'd say of this like divisor or /. And then down here we have left top, and then we have right top, and then we have left bottom and right bottom. And it's kind of a weird flow. And if you have to bring up a chart, I mean, a lot of stuff in my life, I have to bring up a chart or something to visually remind myself of what order the stuff goes in. But if we want to state what percentage, you know, radius those things have, and we could just, you know, CSS, a lot of things, art, you kind of have to eyeball, right? So if we do that, then we are shoving in on the top left, which was right here. We're pushing it down 70%, which is pretty cool. But if we look here at the left top, we're also shoving this in 60%. So that's why you're kind of having this big freaking gap right here, right? And I think that's pretty cool, you know, to kind of put those two pieces together. But I also promised that there would be an animation here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and make the keyframes. And I'm just going to copy and paste this because, once again, this is a lot. This is a lot of stuff going on right here. And I don't want to type it over and over and over again. So what we have, you have to use @keyframes. That kind of means that in my eyes, you know, it's kind of like you're making like a function or something like that. What you're saying is you have a linear path in time, and you're starting at a certain point, and then you're moving forward, you know, presumably up to 100% here. And it doesn't have to be 28%, 42%, 14%. You, I think, could just do 0, then 100%, or there's some other ways to express yourself here. But at this point, we just have a bunch of different percentages here. So if I wanted to come in and do, you know, 80 right there, or do, where's some other weird gaps? If I'm going to come here and do 52, come here and do, you know, 36, it's wherever it's at in the percentage timeline. And you're going to be wondering, like, where is the timeline? How do I determine 0%? How do I determine 14%? What about 52%, just over at the halfway point, right? And so since this is linear moving, you know, time is going to be used, right? So before we get to that explanation, we have the border radius. It's everything that we've learned above. So we're not going to be, you know, pushing in at all. And you notice that the background color is going to slightly change over time. So really, I'm, you know, just entered random numbers in here, and I'm going to play with it, and it's going to be cool. So how do I kick this off and make this blob do blob things? Well, I'm going to come down. I'm going to look right below that border radius here. And yes, my GitHub Copilot thing, which I haven't turned off, is suggesting the wrong stuff. So we're going to do animation. And what we're going to tell it is we want to use an animation. And an animation does kick off with this at keyframes. So what did you name it? I named mine Blobify. And I want this to run over 10 seconds. I want to ease in and out, which means I want a smooth motion. I want it to go forever because, you know, who wants a good thing to end? And I want to alternate, which means it's going to go front to back to front kind of deal. And so now you have this moving animation right here that is over 10 seconds. As soon as it starts at the, you know, first second or whatever, it's this value. And when it's done, it should, you know, be at this value. So really, this is the percentages, or how far 36%, 14% of this 10 seconds it has to work with. So when you're working with the keyframes here and the border radius, right, which is kind of the bigger piece of this blob, even though I'm talking about animations, you want to think about how long an animation lasts and at what, you know, percentage or point in that timeline do you want a certain effect to take place. And so this is a way you can make a blob. You could control the border radius. I know this is still kind of weird syntax, and if you have to look it up repeatedly, I mean, I've been programming for 10 years. I have to look crap up all the time. So yeah, if you have any questions, drop them below. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe. I love doing this for y'all, and have a great day.